Hello. Hi. Welcome to our webinar for the review workflows with ftrack. I'm Brian Hay, ftrack's head of sales for the Americas. We're excited to talk to you about our review solutions. We'll run through the different ways of reviews and why specific approaches need specialized tools, along with some example workflows. But before we jump into the webinar, I'd like to introduce Rory McGregor, ftrack's general manager for the Asian Pacific region, and was previously Cospective's CEO, the creators of cineSync, before they were acquired by ftrack late last year. Say hello, Roy.
Hello.
He will be our presenter. Thank you. He will be our presenter today, and we'll go through the different review workflows between Cospective and ftrack review. We expect this webinar to be to last about 45 minutes, and please use the Q&A panel at any time. We'll try to go through all of them at the end of the session. If we don't get to answer your questions on this webinar, we'll follow up with you shortly afterwards. So let's begin. Rory, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Brian. Today we're going to run through basically what reviews are, how ftrack helps, and why we've developed a number of different tools to work in different review situations. Just a quick bit of background from our end. As Brian said, I was previously CEO of Cospective. We make the video review and approval tool cineSync. And we've been working in the industry for about 15 years doing remote review and approval, particularly synchronized remote reviews, so having live interactive reviews across the internet. And we were acquired last year by ftrack, who make a project management suite for managing your entire workflow end-to-end on shows, and review is obviously a big part of that. So we had been working with ftrack for a number of years, and we've now combined and merged forces, and we are building review platforms across web, mobile, application, desktop, and really trying to find as many ways as possible to be able to share media, share work in progress, and to make things really easy for people. But to do that, we have to really understand what different review situations exist and why we have different approaches for each of those. So, and also the different requirements that exist within review workflow. So whether your primary requirements are that it is easy to share files and that it's easy for guests to be able to access them, or whether it's important that you're looking at the highest quality material, or whether security is your primary concern. These different requirements will change the way that you interact, and it will change the tools that you use. So we're going to look at that today, and we're also going to look at how to make the most out of remote review sessions, and how we can use remote review to boost your creative cycles, and to ensure that you waste as little time as possible in getting feedback, and that the feedback is as clear and as unambiguous as possible. So the solutions we're looking at today are going to be ftrack Review, which is a platform built by ftrack in conjunction with us on the interactive side, to allow you to view media, share media, view media in a browser, to be able to send invites to guests, have them look at the files that you're sending them, to be able to have a fully interactive review with them as well, and to be able to save that feedback and pass it around in a PDF at the end of the review. ftrack Studio. We're not going to go into the full ftrack Studio suite. We have some other webinars coming up where we'll go into that in more detail. But ftrack Studio is the full platform. So that gives you access to everything from scheduling to asset management to everything that you need to manage your workflow, but we'll show you the review capabilities that exist within ftrack Studio as well. And then cineSync, which is an installed application which interacts and is fully integrated with ftrack, but it can also work as a standalone review tool. And that's something that's been used widely in the industry for a number of years. So as a, I think that probably covers the basic summaries, but to go through the some of the terminology we're going to be using today, just to clarify so that we're all on the same page. When we talk about participants, we're talking about everyone who's in a review together. So whether it's a synchronized review or whether it's something that people are just looking at in their own time, participants are the people who are in a review. Sync participants are everyone who's in a review, who's looking at things at the same time, so fully interactively. And all of our tools allow full interaction. There is no one presenter and everyone else has to be, asked to be able to show something. When you're in an ftrack or a cineSync review, you can interact, show people anything that you do, they can see. Anything you do, they can see. You can make notes on the screen. You can, call out specific actions, and everyone will see exactly what you're looking at and what you're showing them. External collaborators. So these are people who essentially are participants in a review who don't have to have a license. So both cineSync and ftrack allow guests to join without having to have their own license for the software, which means that they don't have to set up anything in advance, and they just join with a session invitation or with a session key. And team members is specifically on the ftrack side. They're people who are ftrack users or ftrack review users who have their own login information and who have full access to the system. So with all that out of the way, when we're talking about reviews, there's actually a kind of a surprising number of different ways that people review media, and for different reasons. So two main sort of subcategories are the internal and the external reviews. And within internal reviews, that might be within one facility, that might be within one room. And certainly that's how people used to do it a lot. So everyone would get into a theater and they would sit and they'd watch the same media, and you'd have 50 people in a room, and a supervisor or who was running the review would say, this is what we're looking at, and anyone who's in the room who had feedback, they could just shout it out. Obviously, in the last few months, that has become more of a challenge in this COVID world. And so people are looking at ways of being able to manage these things more remotely. Internal reviews can also exist across different offices of the same business. So often work is shared between the, say, the Los Angeles facility and the Toronto facility. And the media exists at both ends in both facilities. It's all mirrored, but they still need to be able to communicate with each other. So we supply tools to allow that internal review, but across facilities. We have external reviews. So a lot of facilities will subcontract work out, or they'll work with other facilities who are also, sharing assets or building parts of the same shot. So you need a way of being able to communicate with them. You need a way of being able to communicate with a supervisor. So a supervisor might be looking after 15, 20 facilities on a single show. And you also need to be able to talk to your client, whether that's a studio, whether that's a director, whether that's an agency, if you're in advertising. You need to be able to share with people who aren't necessarily technical and who need to be able to participate in a review, give really coherent feedback in a way that you can't do with email, and to be able to do that remotely, but without having to know how the technology works. So we try to make it as easy as possible for guests. And as I mentioned before, the other kind of requirements which dictate how these things are done are going to be based on how easy you want the files to be to access, and whether that's your primary concern, sharing files simply, or whether security is the primary concern, if you want to lock down media and make sure that no one has access to it that shouldn't, and that they don't retain access to it after the review. It may be about quality. So whether you're looking at, whether it's sufficient to look at a proxy and just do a quick discussion about action in a shot, or movement, or blocking, or whatever, or whether you're looking at a final and you need to make a judgment call on whether you're approving it, and how important interactivity is. Sometimes you can just send someone a link, ask them to give their feedback in their own time, and that's fine. But other times it's really important to be able to have a conversation with them and to be looking at that media with them. And if they have questions, to be able to answer those questions in context while looking at the same frame of the same clip. So there's really no chance for misinterpretation or miscommunication. So looking at internal reviews in a bit more detail. And we've been through some of this already, but really the idea is that within internal review, everyone has access to the media locally. So you don't have to worry about sharing the files. It's all happening internally. And sometimes these happen within fully air-gapped facilities. So that might mean that you literally cannot get out of the room. So you have to look at it with only people who are there. But we have, and we'll go through this with cineSync in a minute, but we have built ways of being able to share files through basically whitelisted ports in a firewall. So the media stays local within the air-gapped facility, that doesn't move. But the communication between the copies of the media that are in each location is managed via cineSync, via a very secure communication system. And we can look at how that works. So, and we've discussed this part already, but yeah, and it's worth emphasizing that cineSync, the way it's set up, we are reviewing files without having to move them around at all. Like each person in the review has their own copy of the media, and we just manage the synchronization between those copies. So that's very handy in situations where you want to keep the media locked down, where ftrack review allows for more easy sharing of the media. So people being able to access the files from a media, from an internet browser. So let's see a couple of different versions of this in action. So first, we're going to have a look at how review works within ftrack Studio. And when I can get this to play. All right. So here we're looking at ftrack Studio and the ftrack Studio interface, and all the versions that we have for review within ftrack. So any of those files can be played just with the internal player. So this is just looking at it locally as an individual. So anyone who is a team member can go through and have a look at it in ftrack, or as you can see here, they can upload it into RV or Hero Player or whatever other player that they need to view it in. We can create lists of the files that are for review, and then we can add those into the various player options. So here we have a list that's been created for today, and each of these contains a version that we can view. But if we want to be able to view these with other team members, we've built a review tool within ftrack Studio. This is currently in release, but it's kind of not in wide use yet. The next version of ftrack will see this brought to the front of the interface. But we can play a number of files in this review. We can play them in sequence, so we're running a number of clips side by side, so end to end, so we can run through them and see them in context. And we can also see in compare mode, so we can see two versions of the same clip, and we can see the changes and audition them as we go through. So the idea of this is to be able to bring up any file internally, to be able to view it, to be able to view it in context, to be able to view it against previous versions and compare, and then to be able to leave feedback. So we can do that by drawing on the screen. We can do that by leaving text notes. We have a number of different options for how we give feedback within this this environment. And we've also recently added synchronized review within this as well. So within the facility, two participants can be looking at the same media, and they can share their comments and synchronize them. So whatever one person does at one end will happen at the other end as well. So here you can see that these two participants are now in sync. If one of them marks up the screen, then the other participant will see that as well once the arrow is created. So it gives us a really nice way of being able to interact. Sorry, I'm just going to try and break out of technical challenges. All right. So the other option that we have in ftrack is cineSync. So cineSync is a tool that rather than being browser-based, it's all playing back locally. So you'd have the media locally on your local file system, and everyone else in the review would have equal access to the media wherever they are as well. So internally within a facility, everyone has access to the file system within that facility. Or if we're looking at it externally with another facility, they'll have the mirrored file system at their end as well. So cineSync allows us to create a session. So we have the owner is on the top left here. Imagine that you're going to see the owner and a guest joining. Imagine they're in two separate locations, but in this case, we're seeing them both on the same screen. So the owner's created a session, which has created a session key, which the owner can copy. And then when the guest joins, they don't need their own account. They can just join with that session key. So that session key identifies them in the session, and it also makes sure they're joining the correct session. Once they've joined the session, then the host can add the media. So because the host and the guest in this situation both have access to the media locally, because this is an internal review, the host can just drag and drop the files in, and then the guest will be interacting with them. If the host changes the movie, then it changes for the guest. If the guest draws on the screen, then the host will see it. So again, it's fully interactive and very simple to use. So then we get into the more fun stuff. So external reviews. These are reviews where you're working with people who are outside of your direct facility. So it means that in addition to having an interactive review with them, you also need to be able to share the work with them. So you can manage reviews externally asynchronously. So you can send someone the files and ask for them to come back with feedback in their own time. But I think we've all been in situations in the past where the feedback that comes back doesn't make sense, or you realize that they haven't understood what they've been sent. They haven't understood the version that's there, or they haven't understood why they're being asked to comment on it. And a lot of these things can be solved much more simply by being able to discuss it with them while you're reviewing. So synchronized review gives you a platform to be able to review in context and to ensure that any misunderstandings can be clarified during the review process. It can really help even with things like, sometimes language and cultural barriers, in the written word can be quite tricky, but when you discuss it and you're showing them at the same time, so you're seeing the pictures at the same time as you're talking, then it makes it much easier to understand and much easier to communicate. We find that it enables a much more creative conversation. So rather than someone just saying, I'd like to change this and like to change that, you can actually start getting some ideas and some some flow in the process. So we'll have a look at how we manage external reviews within both ftrack and cineSync. And the challenges with external reviews obviously are to do with moving files around and with security. So how do you review securely in a situation where the files are being sent to other people? You know, if you send media to an external control if you send media to an external machine, how do you retain control of it? And how do you manage in a way that doesn't require everyone else in the review to have, you know, a high level of technical expertise? You know, how do you get them to review when they aren't so familiar with computers, when they find, you know, a lot of tools complicated? And this is a lot of the industry. You know, a lot of times when you're working with producers, directors, you know, they're not going to be across every tool that's available. They can't learn everything. So tools that are simple and intuitive, and which you as the host are able to control the experience for the guest is really important. So we're all about kind of ensuring a seamless experience within the review. So let's have a look at it within ftrack to start with. So this is using ftrack as an external review tool. So hopefully this is sufficient quality. It's looking a bit blurry on my screen, but basically we are creating an external review session here. That okay, looks like that was going good. So this is an external review session where we've created a playlist and we're now inviting people to join. So this will send an invitation out via email. Anyone who clicks the link in the email will then join the review as a guest. So once you're in the review, you can do the same things that we're talking about with the internal review within Studio. You can play files in a context cut, so being able to play you know, files end to end and having it run from one to the other. You can view them side by side, but you can have a fully interactive review. So if the host draws on the screen, the guest sees it. If the host posts feedback, then that feedback is available for everyone within the comment section. So, and this is working with someone who is outside the review and, outside the studio. So they're able to access these files from ftrack's cloud storage, which is all TPN approved. So this is a secure workflow, but it is all web-based. So for the guest, they don't need to know how to make it work. It all just kind of happens for them, and you can guide them through the process. But if they want to interact with the review, they can. They have the ability to be able to draw and play and everything else. Within cineSync, so just before I go through this one, there will be situations where you need to send high quality media on projects that are very confidential. So in fact, I'll show this in two parts. So to start with, we'll show how we share files using ftrack and using the ftrack integration with cineSync. And then after that, I'll show you the security features to enable it. But within this demo, we are looking at the same session we had before, but in this case, the guest doesn't have access to the media. So we need to give them access to the files. And one of the ways of doing that, other than sharing it with them via a spare or by another file transfer tool, is that we can share them via our integration with ftrack. So our integration with ftrack allows you to log into essentially your ftrack instance directly, And in this, you're just looking at the things that are relevant to review. So we can see our projects. Within a project, we can see the versions, and we can also see those arranged as reviews or as lists. So within the versions, we can see information on each of those versions. We can drill down into a version. We can see previous notes that have been added on that version. And this is all information that's available to us in ftrack. So this is historical data, but we can add those files into the cineSync review, and the guest actually pulls those files directly from the from your ftrack instance without the guest having to log into ftrack or even know where the files are coming from. So this is a really simple way of being able to move files around for guests without them needing to know how it works. So as long as they can log in with a session key, everything else can happen automatically. And they can essentially at this point sit back and just watch, and you can present this media to them. But again, they can interact if they want. So you can draw on a screen, you can add notes, you can have a fully interactive review, and at the end of it, we can then publish these notes back to ftrack. So this is a preview window where we can see what we're going to publish. We can edit the notes if we need to. We can merge them with existing notes. So if there are previous notes in ftrack that we'd like to add these comments to, we can do that, or we can publish it as a new note. And then at the end of that process, we export those files. Oh, well, so I'll say we can approve or change the approval status of the file as part of this, and then export it into ftrack. So once it's exported, it's immediately available in ftrack. This feedback is instant. So if we look at this clip within ftrack itself, we can see the annotations that we just made, and we can see the comments that we added. So it makes sharing files externally really simple, and it makes, but it's really powerful because we can do that using either like a proxy file. So we're looking at H.264 files that are fairly fast to send around, and we can view those anything up to HD. Or we can also send original media around using the same way. So, and then we can support a wide range of file types in cineSync for playback. So you can review either work in progress, or you can review very high quality media at the same time. So that's working externally. So the question when you're working externally, and the question we get asked all the time, and something we spend quite a lot of time on, is how you share files securely. And what are the really important fundamentals of security? Because you don't want security to impact accessibility in such a way that it's difficult for people to be able to access the media they need to make comments on. But you don't necessarily want to make things so accessible that media is then floating around in the outside world and available to anyone. Like, you want to be able to make sure that you retain control while not putting too many onerous controls on the guest. Because as soon as you make things too difficult for guests, we find that they start objecting to using the platform. So it's always a balance, and it depends on the industry. You know, advertising might have different restrictions to film, which might have different restrictions to design, or games, or, you know, all the different visual companies that we work with. But when it comes down to it, the questions are, you know, how are the reviews accessed, and how do you want the guest to be able to access them? How do you make the media available to them? Do you want to control that process entirely yourself, or do you want the files to be sent to the guests via an automated system? How do you control that media once it's out there? And how do you guarantee performance? You know, we've all seen screen sharing sessions or streaming sessions where the quality can be compromised based on bandwidth. and you really, it undermines the whole process of remote collaboration if the quality is not there. So how do we guarantee that we're seeing what we want people to see? So in this example, we're going to look at how we send video files around for review in cineSync. So if we want to send a director, 4K video that is, final VFX shots on a Hollywood feature that is completely locked down. Like this is media which can't be shared outside the facility under normal circumstances, but for whatever reason, the director is unavailable to be within the facility at the time. Either they're on location for extra shoots, or they have other responsibilities. So we need to be able to share these files with them in a way that is easy for them to access, that gives them full quality reviews, but doesn't take it out of our control. So this is a demonstration of that working within cineSync using the ftrack integration. So these files that we've sent around that we looked at previously with the director was viewing, we have set those files to be encrypted. So for the guest, when the files come down from ftrack, those files are encrypted on disk, and they are never unencrypted until they're decrypted into memory during playback. And they're only decrypted for the guest when they're in the review with the host who encrypted in the first place. So the files are pulled into their file system. They're given these anonymous file names. So it doesn't say, Star Wars 1. It's an anonymous file name. And if you try to open that file in anything other than the cineSync session that you're in right now, then that file won't be playable. It will say that it's not a valid file, and that it can't be played in a video player. It can't be opened in VLC, and it can't be opened in cineSync without the host being present, because the host's authentication and the session key comprises part of the encryption key for this file. So it means that during the review, the files are decrypted into memory. So their files are still playing back locally, which means we are able to play back high resolution video using local machine resources. We're not streaming video here. We are actually playing this back from their local file system, but it's an encrypted file. And at the end of the review, we have enabled automatic deletion of the media. So if when the guest and the host leave, you'll see these files are actually going to be pulled from the file system automatically. And so it means at the end of the review, the files aren't left behind. So we've enabled a review session here where the guest has had access to very high quality media. They've been able to play back a session using 4K files where they're playing back video at full speed. It could be 4K, 60 frames a second, without any bandwidth restrictions, because they're playing back these files locally and just using cineSync to manage the synchronization between the copies. But at the end of the review, the files are deleted. And while it was on their system, it was encrypted. And while it was transferred to them, it was transferred using an encrypted transfer technology. So there is no way of that file leaking into the wild. And if it does, it's useless to anyone because it cannot be played. So that is one way that we manage secure reviews, obviously within ftrack review as well. If you're looking at files in a browser, those files aren't being saved to the file system. So it means at the end of the review, it's somewhat ephemeral. At the end of the review, those files aren't left behind on the machine. And again, that's been through various approval systems. It gets audited. We're about to go through the same process again to prove the security of the browser-based review. But browsers do have that limitation of really high speed, high quality video. And if you need that, then we have cineSync as the option for that scenario. And cineSync can do other things, which we're not going to show here, but we can support stereoscopic, 3D playback and other options which aren't available in a browser. So in the end, this is what it comes down to. Like what situation are you in? Who are you reviewing with? What are the requirements of the review? What information are you wanting to get back out of them? Is the media available at both ends already, or do you need to make it available to people in the review? What file size are you looking at? How important is it that people are looking at the final version and the highest quality version, and how important is it that you just have an image there that they can provide feedback on, just to give some context to their commentary? How important is it that this process integrates with other platforms so that you can share information easily? And how important it is that that the files remain secure? Depending on the situation, will depend on what review process you use, whether it's all sitting in the same room and hitting play, whether it's sharing it in a browser, whether it's sharing it interactively within an online review session, or whether it's sharing large files and being able to comment on them directly. ftrack has really committed to building a broad suite to enable all these different levels, and we can make it as simple as possible, or we can meet whatever requirements you have for your situation. So that's really the main bulk of the presentation. So I'm going to throw it back to Brian and see if we've had any questions. I believe there's a couple that have come through already, but Mr. Hay.
Yes, Roy, great job, sir. Thank you for going through all that. Super excited to see both forms of review and how it's being used and what different ways you can set up the review sessions. That is great information. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. So I can see we have one question here about file transfer options if we're not using ftrack as the integrated file system, and that does happen from time to time. I don't know why, because everyone should be using ftrack. It's great, but if you're in a situation where you're just using, you just have cineSync and you want to be able to move files around, we have some other options there as well. So some of our customers will share media using their own systems, and at the very high secure level, some of them have their own inbuilt audited systems that allow them to transfer files in a way that is that provides a full audit trail. So we don't get involved in that, and that's one of the appeals to them of cineSync, that that we can stay out of that process and allow them to manage it, and then we just synchronize the video when it turns up. Or we can integrate with people's FTP or SFTP systems so that they can move files around that way, and we can allow it's the same encryption and auto deletion with that. We're currently retooling our Aspera integration, but that's another potential option. And we integrate with other platforms that allow us to move files around in a similar way to ftrack as well. So again, regardless of your setup, we can make that work. And within ftrack, the files are located in Amazon. So the files are in the cloud. So that makes files really easy to pass around, because you don't have to worry about that part of it. It's all managed by ftrack or ftrack review. So hopefully that answers that question. But if you need more information, let us know.
Yep. I was also going to say, if there is anyone that has any questions, the Q&A is at the bottom of the screen. Please feel free to ask any additional questions on here, and we can go through those with you right now. So feel free to put those in there, and when we have Neil and myself that can be able to get those for Rory to answer. Rory, real quick, you might have covered this, but quality of content for either ftrack review or the Review Pro. Did you go through that already? And then also what the quality is for cineSync?
I actually didn't. So in ftrack review, and correct me if I get this wrong, Brian. Brian being the specialist across the ftrack side. Within ftrack, we are looking at basically 720p transcoded video. But with the Review Pro add-on, we can scale that up to at least HD, and I believe there's capacity for up to 4K video. Is that correct, Mr. Hay? Okay. So
Yep,
yes.
yep. Yeah,
So,
I
so
think
with
it comes with 1080p HD for the review
right.
portion
Okay.
of it.
All right.
It
So
does
10.
go up to 4K with
Okay.
the Review Pro. So,
Yeah.
yep.
So yeah, so it gives us the ability to be able to view files. So we transcode the media within that process so that we guarantee it plays on any browser. There are still the potential to send files, the original files, around to people as well. But within the actual review interface, we are looking at H.264 transcoded media, so it'll play on any browser and it will play back easily. But we try to maintain the resolution that it's been uploaded with. So if you've uploaded the 4K file and you have Review Pro, then you'll get a 4K file back. So that's, you know, as high resolution as you're going to need on an internet browser. But if you don't need the size and you'd like the speed and you'd like to be able to, you know, get files around quickly, then, you know, HD files and, you know, 1920 files or 2K may be sufficient for your workflow. And I think a lot of people tend to work around that kind of level for most of their review to keep it light and simple. Within cineSync, we can support up to 4K video. We can really play back anything that the local file system can, or the local machine can support, and that's really the wonder of being able to leverage local playback in cineSync. You're not relying on the browser per se. You're actually using your full machine resources and the local graphics card. So we can play, you know, 8K stills and 4K video. We can play within cineSync. We can also play things like file sequences. So rather than just video, we can play frame sequences. We can support, you know, EXR, Cineons, DPX, JPEG, PNG sequences. So again, it's depending on your situation and the resolution that's required. We can scale up and down depending on what you need. So the other question we've had just come through was about bandwidth. So if you're looking at you know, the different resolution files, how does that affect the performance? Depending on bandwidth, if someone's in a hotel or if someone's on a home internet, which is happening a lot now, and we're seeing a lot of customers who are, you know, previously working in facilities who are now working from their living rooms. How do we manage that process with high quality video? And the answer is that with both ftrack and cineSync, we're essentially playing the video files back in their entirety. We're not streaming them. We're not screen sharing them. With ftrack review, the files are buffered into the browser memory. So the files are pulled in and they're playing back locally from the browser. So we're not waiting for the next bit of the file to turn up when we're playing. We have it all available to us and we can hit play and we're going to see full frame rate playback in the browser, regardless of the bandwidth of the user. It may take a little bit longer for them to buffer the file, but the important thing is about the performance once it's there. So so bandwidth is less important than you would think within the ftrack review workflow, and it's the same with cineSync. With cineSync, the files are playing back locally, and all we're sending back and forth is control information. So just go to frame 17, draw a line here, change movies, play, rewind. And those commands are really light. So again, it doesn't require much bandwidth. It was actually built, we started this like 15 years ago. So we built it to work on the old dial-up modems at a minimum. And I believe it still does. We did a test a little while ago to make sure it still worked that way. But you know, within anyone's kind of standard broadband setup now, you'll find that regardless of bandwidth, you'll be able to play files in both ftrack review and in cineSync.
Great. Well, hey, Roy, we do have some questions coming in. So would
Hey,
you like me
excellent.
to read those off for you and have you answer them?
Okay, so yeah, I can see that now. So we have a question saying
Yep,
I've
one second.
been using ftrack for my last 5 films, but I'm interested in using or adding cinesync into the next one. Um, so does the guest in cinesync need a license, or does it work the same way as ftrack review does? So um, so I guess the question here is, in licensing, if you're adding a cinesync license to ftrack, how does that work? So cinesync itself is licensed currently; it's licensed separately. So you can talk to Brian here in terms of sales as to how that's all priced. But for the guest, there's no license for the guest that's required. So within cinesync, you basically have a pool of users, a pool of participants that can join a review. And those people can be anyone. So if you have a 10 user license, that means that up to 10 people can join the review, and they can be different people each time. So uh, you as the host essentially take up one seat in that review, and then you can have 9 other people join. But all they need is the session key. And they take up a seat for the duration of the review. And then at the end of the review, they give up their seat and someone else can use it. So there's no specific licensing required for guests in either ftrack review or cinesync.
Great.
And all right,
Second
so
one is what's maximum frame rate supported for 4K video in CineSync?
okay, so someone really wants to drive it. So
Yeah.
within cinesync, we would say that 60 frames a second is currently the maximum frame rate. We've run 4K stereo video at 60 frames a second, but it really depends on the machine. So if you're using a cheap laptop, you may find that your performance is going to be a little under what someone can do on a new Mac Pro. But we recommend people try it out. We have a free trial of cinesync and of ftrack on our websites. So try it out, see how you go. But essentially, within cinesync, 4K video, we can support up to 60 frames a second, which should cover most situations. And the last question we have in the list here is someone who says they're new to the industry, and they're wondering if there's more information that they can access about this, rather than me running through it at full speed as I have today, because we're drinking from the fire hose, as Brian likes to say, in terms of the amount of information that we're putting out. So yes, we have quite a few resources which we can send out after this webinar. And we also have support people that you can talk to. So if you have specific questions, we're more than happy to answer at any time. If you visit the ftrack site, there's a prompt there. You can enter information, and we will get back to you immediately. You can talk to a real live person, and we're a very support based organization. We really believe that that's important. We're not just going to put you in a queue and send you off and give you a ticket and you'll get an answer in 3 weeks. We like to give live support where we can. We like to engage with customers and really try and solve their problems rather than just sell them software. We like being part of the industry and part of the process. So yeah. So if people who want more information, we have that available at ftrack.com. Some of the cinesync stuff is still on cospective.com. That will be merged over the next few months as the two sides of the company come together. And we also have some a knowledge base for both cinesync and for ftrack. So we have a cinesync manual which we can give you access to, and we have a lot of information on ftrack on how you use it and the various instructions on how to do various things in ftrack and ftrack review.
Yeah, definitely. I have to second what Rory was saying too, Sarah, that I've come from a lot of other big companies, and ftrack is refreshing on the support side of things. We have a lot of big to small to medium-sized studios and companies coming over not just because of how much ftrack is being developed and being improved, but also the support. So our support team, this comes down from all the way from our CEO, Frederick Limesatter, all the way down, is we just want to make sure customers are successful with the product. So with that said, we are definitely willing to set up one-on-one sessions with you, with anyone, and not only go over a demo, but set up following sessions to do Q&A or best practice sessions with you guys. So very hands-on, and yeah, it's a great team to be a part of, and everyone here is very positive and very easy to work with and highly knowledgeable. We have so many people that are 10 to 15 years experience in the VFX and animation and just the media entertainment industry. So it's great to be able to leverage and lean on those people. So to Rory's part, you're not just talking with, you're not in a queue or something like that, or talking to a salesperson right away. You're actually getting to talk to someone that has a high level of knowledge or experience in the industry, so they get to answer your questions right away. So thank you again. It looks like we're not having any more questions, maybe. Oh,
no, I think that, yeah, I think we've probably covered all those questions that are there now.
Yep. We have one more question. It sounds like cineSync can display 8K stills but not play 8K videos. Is that correct?
At the moment, I'd say that's true. Yes. Yeah, we can definitely display 8K stills and 8K frames, but 8K videos is something that look, I think it's as much a machine resource thing as anything else. And I don't know that anyone's really trying to attempt to play 8K videos on standard equipment. But as soon as the gear can play it, we'll make sure that we can support it, because we do want to be able to support whatever files you need to play back. So again, if you've got specific requirements for us, please reach out, because we are always keen to make sure that we're supporting what you need. We really value feedback from our customers, positive and negative. If you want to see things improved, changed, moved around, let us know. We are really responsive to it, and we really, we try to build this for our customers. We're not building this for ourselves. So let us know what you want, and we'll put it in there.
Yeah, definitely. Please feel free to email the sales@ftrack.com, and then we can make sure that any needs that you guys have or interests are followed up on, and we can set up meetings for you as well. So again, Rory, thank you for going through all of this. I appreciate it. Neil, thank you for being in the background here as well and helping and supporting. So Neil Wilson, he is the CTO of Cospective. Now he is the product manager down there for cineSync and Frankie. He's also been part of this meeting in the background helping out. So I appreciate you guys. I know it's super early in the morning right now in Adelaide, Australia. So I appreciate your help down under. And again, this is Brian Hay, Head of Sales for the Americas, based out of Denver, Colorado. Everyone, thank you for your time. We are looking forward to do more of these webinars. Please feel free to go to our webinars. Let me pull up that sheet real quick. I just went away from it, of course. It's ftrack.com/webinars. Feel free to sign up for the next ones. We are covering 2 on here. If you see that, there's one for the EU for our EMEA market, where it's September 22nd, going over similar stuff that we're doing here, and introduction into actions for ftrack Studio as well for September 29th. So those will be on our website. We are looking to do a part 2 of this, of the deep dive into the review workflows, and hopefully that will be in October of some time frame, and that will be going over what our customers' feedback. So we're looking to set up a panelist of our customers and getting their feedback of the reviews, so you don't only hear from us and our experts like Rory, but you also get to hear directly from our customers as well. So again, thank you for everyone joining. Rory, can't say enough about you, man. You're a great guy. I don't care what Neil says about you, but you're a good guy. But yeah, again, and also last thing too, everyone here that's attended, we will be sending out a mini survey for you to fill out. That's really just to help us improve our next webinars and just make sure that we keep making this high quality value to our customers. So thank you again, and have a great day and stay healthy. Thank you guys.
Thanks all.